thought about the proposal. Now you think about a man getting on his knee and proposing to a woman, right? Oh, it's so romantic. Oh my gosh, everybody screams and yells. Blah, blah, blah. Knowing this historical context from history for marriage, I realized for the first time, 9 times out of 10, the reason why the man would kneel on one knee to propose is because he was proposing to a child. What's going on? I'm AnokhiTheOne, back with another video. And in this video, I will be breaking down the ancient history of the colonization of womanhood. This is ancient, right? Some of us have been woken up to this concept because of some of the things the trans movement has been saying and doing, where it's been completely overt. But I'm about to break down the ancient colonization of womanhood and how these principles and ideas and stupidities are still being taught to us all day, all the time, right? And it's not just trans women, it's not gay men, it is straight heterosexual men who started this in ancient times, okay? So we're going to break it down, and this is 100% not going to be anything that you're expecting. There may be 1 or 2 things, but majority of what I'm about to say, you're not going to be expecting, because I was not expecting this until I read this book, Crossovers, The Origin of Homosexuality Revealed. Okay, this book goes into ancient history. Okay, and if you haven't seen my last video that is just about the origin of homosexuality, I highly recommend it before watching this video, because I'm not going to be reading as much of this book as I did on the other one. And also I wanted this to supplement some of the things that I didn't talk about in that last one, because it was just too long, because there is so much of my journey that I saw reflected in this book, and it's just insane. So, to catch y'all up to speed, the way this textbook, okay, this is huge. This textbook, and I literally read the entire book in 3 days, okay? Humongous. It's crazy. But I could not, when I started reading it, I could not stop reading it, because there's so much in there that just confirms so many of my thoughts, but also just blew my mind and just everything. So the way it's structured is, there is a scribe named Sydney, who is basically the author of this book, but also he knows how to read and speak Hebrew, which helps when it comes to deciphering different translations of the Bible and looking at the original text of the Bible and different religious texts. And then there is Reverend Carl, another character. So there's 4 main characters. So Reverend Carl, he is a Christian reverend, but he is a prophet. And they say in biblical times, it's called a prophet, but what we would consider it today is a medium. So he's able to speak to crossover loved ones, and different higher vibrational beings, including the third character, an angel, right? And so through mediumship, Carl is able to channel an angel, similar to Abraham Hicks. If you haven't already heard about Abraham Hicks, look that up. Already debunked the this is the devil thing on the other one, because it talks about that in this book. And I'm going to be breaking down a lot of the principles and different things that is broken down, because it's just, the perspective is just wild. But when you are listening to something that is tapped in to higher vibrations, it is always, it's like, it's the truth. It makes complete logical sense, but a lot of times it's the exact opposite of what we've been taught, because we have been taught the exact opposite of logical sense, and we have been taught the opposite of truth. Okay? And it's largely based in Holy Spirit, which they try to not get you to think about, right? And so then the 4th character is Rick, who is a very distraught young man who is a Catholic, but he is struggling with the fact that he is gay. And this angel felt so strongly because Carl had never channeled this angel until it was close to him meeting Rick. And the angel wanted to speak to Rick about homosexuality. And I just want to go through and break down how I relate to this whole entire story, because in my journey, it's felt like I have been on a similar journey, except I didn't have particular people, like a group of people to just break it down to me, or like very specific things. It's like I had to go on a journey. So for me, my journey started with my dad passing away, and if y'all are subscribers and y'all have seen my videos, y'all have heard this video or this story 1,000 times, but for the new people, I'll tell it to you again, and also in the context of this. So, because I'm learning more about my own story from reading things like this. And there's things that I felt, but I hadn't had it broken down like this outside of me. So it's just like, wow. So, my dad passed away, and I'm an artist. So at the time I was writing a lot of music, and I put on an instrumental. I started rapping my feelings. It was very therapeutic for me at that time. So I started rapping in first person to my dad. And the song is called The Conversation. Halfway through the conversation where I'm rapping to my dad, it's like, it's called automatic writing. I had no idea that was a thing at the time. So I'm writing, and all of a sudden it flips, and it's in the conversation is talking to me instead of me talking to my dad. It's like the energy of the spirit is talking to me, but I'm writing, and it's like I'm not in control completely, right? And once I realized who was writing, right, I stopped. I called my mom, and I started crying. I'm like, I feel like my dad's trying to talk to me through my rap. And she just told me to finish writing it. And I was just like, okay. I thought she was going to tell me that I'm crazy. I was hoping she was going to tell me that I'm crazy, because I ain't never heard no stuff like this. And I'm scary. That's what's so wild about me having all these experiences anyway. So anyway, I'm doing this, and it gets to the end of it, and it is literally like I'm having a conversation. I am having a conversation with my dad, and he's saying all these things that I had never heard, because when he was alive, he was very sick, and since I was in like junior high, right? So we never had like adult conversations, like a real conversation. So blew my entire mind, because I didn't know that this was possible. I thought maybe I was possessed by a demon, but nobody told me that I was possessed by a demon. Everybody just went with it, and I was just looking around like, what's going on? Like, what's this? So I went on this journey. I became very super holy rolling and religious, right, until I got on my own nerves. And I have this whole testimony in a video where I reacted to Jackie Hill Perry's testimony. So I have it in grave detail, but this is a sped up version. I got on my own daggone nerves, because I just was seeing demons and devils and everywhere. I have been studying the devil and all this other stuff, trying to figure out what that's about, so I don't get burnt. I wasn't trying to go to hell for any reason. I hadn't really done anything in my life yet, but if I was about to, I'm trying to make sure that nothing, So, I was getting on my own nerves. I was getting on other people's nerves, pushing everybody away. And then I prayed. I went to sleep one day, or laid down one day, and I prayed for understanding and compassion for other people. It's the first time I ever prayed for a character trait, right? Most people do not pray for character, right? They don't pray for, right? So I laid down and went to sleep. Woke up in the middle of the night, and I heard a voice saying, "You're gay." And in the video, I was like, okay, yeah, most people would be like, oh yeah, that voice is the devil telling you that you're gay. But my thing is, it was the truth. And it was the first time I had heard that. I had heard that truth from inside of me, even though I already knew. I had never even um acknowledged that to myself, right? Crazy. I was in the closet in my own mind. Okay? That's how deep it is. Okay? So, when you come from the Bible Belt, super religious, all this, right? So I'm crying. I'm thinking I'm bound to hell. And it was like immediately, I think it was maybe like the next night or something, I went to sleep, woke up in the middle of the night, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's the time when spirituality is heightened. And I woke up at 3:33 for the first time. And this is back in the day when I had a old school clock in the dark. It was before we was looking at our phone for time and alarm clock. This was a old school clock with red numbers. And I just see 3:33. I wake up and all I see in the entire room is 3:33. Now in my mind, the only numbers that I had ever seen that anybody ever talked about that is anywhere similar was 666, and I'm like, that's half of 666. So I'm thinking in my mind, I'm halfway to hell if I don't get it together. I was scared, but then I looked it up and I realized I that's when I learned about angel numbers. This was like 15 years ago. I feel old as hell saying that out loud. It's probably about 13 years ago. I'm old, if you don't know. But I thought I was halfway to hell. 3:33, what the hell you talking about? I'm halfway there. Oh Lord. So then I look it up and I'm like, wow, this is angel number. I didn't know there's angel numbers. I didn't even know they exist. I just typed in 3:33. It's like, oh, it's an angel number. It's talking about ascended masters and different things like that. And I'm like, wow. And it literally, and I talked about this before, it literally felt like someone was holding my hand, guiding me, right? Guiding me. Because when I tell you I had been deep into religiousness after my dad passed away, I was deep off in everything, scaring myself, trying to be in a spiritual war. And spiritual warfare is real, but the type of spiritual warfare, and this is the type of spiritual warfare a lot of people is still in, right? I read the book by Tony Evans called The Battle is the Lord's, except the whole book is trying to teach you how to fight spiritual battles. And that's what I was in there trying to look for demons in every goddamn thing, right? And this book breaks down all of that, because in what I was, when I made that prayer of compassion and different things like that, I was getting to a point where it's like, God doesn't give you the spirit of fear. So why in the hell am I so scared? Right? So then when I started seeing angel numbers and different things like that, and I came out and I immediately understood that my prayer was answered, right? I prayed for compassion and understanding because I had been extremely judgmental. So me coming out even to myself, immediately I realized how judged I would be based on not even my appearance, but literally just a change in identity or people knowing something about me that they didn't know before, which doesn't really mean doesn't have anything to do with what I'm actually doing. Like, I still hadn't done anything with anybody, but just me going from being just me to being gay or lesbian, whatever, then I'm going to be heavily judged just because of that without changing anything about me, right? So that immediately made me more understanding and compassionate. So it doesn't happen for everybody, as we know. But that whole time I felt guided. So then I'll break down in the book where it talks about this, but I'm going to go through it and then I'm going to read it here, which is amazing. I'm so happy I have this now. So, cause I had never heard anybody break this down. Like, most people's coming out story is like, oh, I found a girlfriend or a boyfriend and then we fell in love, we had sex, and then I came out to my parents. Like, that's what it usually is. And that's what I've heard most of the time. Or they just come out to their parents, and a lot of times on YouTube or whatever, their parents accept them and they're crying about how I wish you would have told me before. That was not my experience. My experience, I ain't never heard and seen my experience ever anywhere. So then my mom set us up with a Christian counselor because, and this is before I came out to her, because my dad had passed away. She wanted to make sure that our mind was right together. So we did a group therapy session where I was completely mute. I was very quiet for most of my childhood. Well, I wouldn't say childhood, but junior high until late high school. Like while my dad was really sick, I was very, very, very quiet. So then she set us up with the one-on-one, and in the one-on-one, I went in there. She said, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on? How you doing, Amber?" And I'm like, "I'm gay," and then I just started crying, thinking I'm going to hell, thinking I'm gonna be a prostitute, a drug addict, alcoholic, everything negative. I don't know, cause you know how they talk about the lifestyle. I see videos. The lifestyle almost killed me. The lifestyle, right? And so I'm thinking because I'm coming out as gay, that means I am in a lifestyle immediately, and I'm in hell immediately too, and everything. So the therapist, thankfully, because I'm telling you, I was guided every step of the way. It's like someone was holding my hand. She was like, "Well, just because you are gay or you're attracted to women does not mean that you are going to be a drug addict, all this other stuff, right?" And thank God, she was literally the perfect person, right? She was the absolute perfect person, because she, like, had I been coming out today, it might have been somebody trying to be affirming, and me saying, I feel more masculine. I've always liked masculine things, and, I like women and blah, blah, blah. They might have said, "Girl, you're non-binary. You're probably a non-binary trans man, and what's happening is you want to be a man, or you're actually what happened is you have a man's soul." Okay, and this breaks down some stuff, but they be telling half truths. You have a man's soul inside you, and the reason why you're attracted to women is because you're actually a man. And I'd be like, "Oh, really? Is that what it is?" I might have been gone down a different path, right? Or she might have been hyper judgmental and religious and been like, "Yeah, girl, I'm sorry. You going to hell. You better find you a boyfriend." And that's the part that really just, I'm rambling, but at the same time I'm not, because I'm glad she was the first person, because by the time I started meeting that type of the people, it was pissing me off, right? But if that would have been first, I might have agreed with him and tried to force myself to be with some boy for real, like hardcore, like actually had sex and did something with him. And I would feel, till this day, I feel violated just because I allowed myself to have a beard and I kissed his ass. I'm pissed off about that. I'm pissed off that I even went that far. But if I would have went any further, I would have been really pissed with myself to this day. Okay. So my angels, they was such a different story, but so if she would have been leaning any way, and she gave me a book, she recommended a book called Healing the Child Within, and that book was so important for me at that time, because it wasn't like she's like, "Oh, here's this gender affirming blah 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 book," or "Here's the Bible," and slapped it across my head. She was just perfect. She gave me a book on healing the child within, regardless of whatever is going on with me. Heal the child within. There's so many people in the LGBT and just in general, before you making any decisions, even before you really get in relationship, before you traumatize yourself further, Start healing the child within. That I'm talking about, oh my God. Right? So then right after I came from that session, I'm like, I'm on top of the world. I'm accepted. This is amazing. I go and tell mom, I'm like, okay, mom, I'm gay. She was not about it. She was not about it. I'm like, I'm on a high. But because, thank the Lord, I went to her first, right? Because I went to the counselor first. I wasn't as traumatized as I probably would have been had I not talked to her, to the therapist right before that, right? It's just like my God was preparing me. Okay. So then I got this book on Amazon, early days of Amazon, okay, called and I have it, what the Bible says about homosexuality. I have it somewhere around here, and it breaks down each scripture, which is not many. It's like it's not even 12. It's literally like 3 or 4 passages that this book breaks down exactly when they threw that in and for what purpose, right? And so it was just breaking that down and breaking down the historical context of the Bible and how the Bible has so many different translations, which I had never heard. I just thought the King James version was the only version. Come to find out, there's like 100 versions just of English translations, which makes no sense, right? So I started going down different rabbit holes, and when I woke up to the religious stuff, I'm talking my whole life was just like everything I've ever known. It's a lie. And this book takes it to the next it's like it breaks down my entire life journey from for the past 15 years into just one book. It's crazy. So yeah. So and then I started being awakened to soulmates and different things like that. And that was just like, okay, if I have a soul, it really doesn't matter. And if I meet my soulmate, it wouldn't matter. My soul ain't really, my soul. It's my soul. What you mean? How you gonna tell me my soulmate? And then I've met soulmates that were women. And this book breaks down how that's even possible. And then, more recently, I've been getting into past life, reincarnation, understanding that. And so far, all the past lives I've been a man. So, let's see. I wanted to break down the council's decision because I read this on the other one. But just to compare it, and not even just that, but the mediumship aspect. Even when I was a child, my mom told me she was stressed out about getting her house that she has now. And she said she was talking to me like almost like I was an adult or something. Because I've been highly, highly, highly intelligent since I was a child. Let's see. What is this? 253. I thought I put the earmark on this already, but I guess I did not. But anyway, when I was like 6 or 7, and my mom, she was stressed out about getting her house, the house that she has now, and she was gonna get approved, whatever. And I was like, the house is yours, mommy. And she's like, how do you know? And I was like, Jesus told me. Either Jesus told me or God told me. I was like, God told me. And she said she looked over. She said she looked over at me, and I'm just like, playing with my socks or something like a little kid, 7, 8-year-old kid. After saying some stuff like that, and she's like, okay. And then she was like, well, the Bible said, the truth to come out from the mouth of babes or something like that. But I've been on it. So the Great Council's decision. So again, I recommend watching that other video because I go deep into all these different things, right? So the origin of homosexuality, what they break down in this book, was in ancient times during the Hittite kingdom. And I'm going to skip that for now, and I'm going to go back to it because I have a lot of things I'm going to go into in this video. But just to parallel the Great Council's decision to my story and how it makes sense, because even in my mother's womb, my mom says she chose to not know what my sex was going to be until I was born. But the entire time I was in her stomach, she thought I was a boy. She just knew I was there's gonna have another son. And I was even big like boys normally are. And the birth pains I was like 9 pounds. I think I was like 8.5, 9 pounds. I was huge. I was a big Michelin baby. And she said after me, she was never having no more kids because I was extremely, extremely painful and terrible to be born. But that's how like male pregnancies normally are. But I think it's just because in ancient African religions, some spirituality, like the book I read, the Spirit of Intimacy by Sabafu Somé, she breaks down how the elders know when a gatekeeper is coming before they're born, right? Because everything in the village is spiritual, right? So I'll break down what they're saying in here about the Great Council's decisions. Okay, let's see if we can get to the part that I want to get to. Okay, wait, where is it? Ascended Master deliberately allowed. I might have to just read this whole chapter because okay. And this goes into the colonization of womanhood too. So if y'all are wondering, I am getting here. So let me start at the very beginning. Since the beginnings of time, there have always been certain individuals who had the capacity to communicate with my dimension. Have you ever heard of women's intuition? Certainly, A1. And he's the angel's talking to Rick, being channeled through Reverend Cardle, talking to Rick, who's the one who has been struggling with homosexuality, with accepting himself. It says women have been more physically psychically gifted than men because the negative charge of women's souls blend more easily with our energy. The male leaders, the priests, grew to hate women because their sensitivity allowed them to communicate with people in my dimension. And women became smarter and more intuitive than men. As time went on, men's resentment of women grew. Then priests created a plan to elevate men by subjugating women. The priest declared that women's only purpose was to satisfy the sexual lust of the men. It was then that women were treated worse than animals. This is the facts. And then he says he's giving an analogy, and basically the analogy is how the higher dimensional beings, and it talks about the Godhead, and it says the Godhead is not just a man in the sky on a golden throne, okay, in heaven. It says heaven is within you. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you, or the kingdom of God is within you. It also says ye are gods. But it breaks down how the Godhead is a council. It's like a great council of high vibrational beings, ascended masters like Jesus, Buddha, different things like that, who deliberate on different things to elevate the planet. So it basically, he gives the analogy of how technology has progressed from communicating through smoke signals, right, with the indigenous Americans did, all the way to now we're talking on TVs and different things like that, right? So then it talks about how mediumship works much in the same way. In biblical times, Spirit used the gifts of trumpet mediumship to allow all the Hebrews to hear the 10 Commandments. Then Moses used automatic writing to have Spirit write these 10 Commandments down on stone tablets. Mediumship has changed a great deal in the last 150 years. We have come up with new methods to convince people that we exist in a higher frequency. Yes. It says we are around you all the time, residing in a higher frequency. We are now in the final stages of developing a new method of communicating with your world. We will be able to make our presence seen on your telecommunication system, just like you said that trumpet mediumship was very much like a telephone call with Spirit. Imagine what it will be like once you can see and hear us on your television screens. We have achieved the knowledge of how to appear in front of your cameras and to appear on your screens. So now we have cell phones. This was in the 80s. We have cell phones, we have social media, we have YouTube, and I definitely feel like this is a part of why they've cracked down so much on censorship on social media, because people was putting all kinds of stuff on YouTube and Instagram, sharing all kinds of different spiritual things, and it breaks down. It says, so Rick was like, that's amazing, that's great news. And he said, you may be excited, my brother. However, many of your religious leaders will begin ranting and raving that our images are the work of the devil and will try to smother our communication through their form of mind control and ignorance. And so with social media, they just say it's against community guidelines. That's all I gotta do. Oh, it goes against community guidelines, and they just take it down. Like, if you get too deep going down the rabbit hole, you're gonna be against the community guidelines in this bit. You're gonna get demonetized or whatever else. Okay, so it says, I hope people accept that it is genuine. And it says, that is our hope, my scribe. Now, let us turn the clock back to when the Hittite priests were abusing girls and treating women in such a horrible manner. And I'll break this down later. So it's about to break down the Godhead. The highest realm of the spirit world is known as the Godhead. This does not mean there's an old man with a long gray beard sitting on a golden bejeweled throne, ready to judge the world. Ascended masters who have total knowingness inhabit the Godhead. These entities have evolved to the point where they no longer need to reincarnate into a physical body. They have learned all that there was to learn from the physical world. These ascended masters have become the champions or leaders of the world of spirit. They have tried to make themselves known through angels and different types of phenomena, but still rejected by religions who teach recycled ignorance. Centuries ago, when the Hittite priests were sexually torturing Hittite girls, the ascended masters decided to convene a grand council meeting. They assembled in a grand hall which had what you know as stadium seating. The most evolved masters sat on ground level. During this meeting, these evolved masters discussed ideas on how to improve communication between the two dimensions of life. It says, A1, I don't understand what you mean. The ascended masters were developing a new method to create better or more sensitive mediums by my scribe. We understand that a woman's chemistry or charge of her soul made her an excellent medium. It was her spiritual body which acts as a receiver of our thought waves. She then acts as a transmitter when she repeats our messages to other physical people. We deliberately planned that certain women who had served as mediums in many lifetimes on Earth would return to Earth. However, this time they would cross over and reincarnate into male bodies. I have taught you much knowledge about the soul, where it is, what it does. And I talked about this in the last video that you should check out if you want to learn more about this. It says, yes, Awan, you have. Then you understand that your soul acts as an eternal and perpetual recorder, storing the memory of everything that you have ever done. The memory of your past life remains stored in your soul, just as memory is stored on the hard drive of your computer. Therefore, when you reincarnate into a different body, you retain the skills, but not the details of your past lives. In the case of these women, the know-how of how to be a medium was still recorded in their souls. A great deal of your character, the physical traits of your previous body, may come through in your new body. The imprinting of the past genetics mixes and sometimes even dominates the genetics of your new parents. Therefore, a brunette baby may be born to parents who have blonde hair. Yes, Awan, we understand. These souls were not alone on their mission. And this is the part where it really resonated with me in my experience. These souls were not alone on their mission. Other helpers accompanied them. These helpers did not reincarnate, but served as controls and guides or guardian angels for these mediums. These assistants stayed in the light field around the mother, helping the soul program the genetics of the baby's body. After the child was born and learned how to walk and talk, these guides would teach the child throughout its childhood into its adult years. When the instrument was ready, he would go into a trance state, and these guides would then use the vocal cords of the medium to teach enlightenment to all humanity. Said, wait a minute. Are you saying that the crossovers were mediums? Yes, my scribe. Ascended masters deliberately allowed crossovers so they could become improved communicators between the two worlds. This is exactly what the other book has nothing to do with this book. By Sabofu Somé, the spirit of intimacy, talking about ancient African spirituality. The indigenous people knew this. Okay, tapped in. It says, and this is also why the elders and the other gatekeepers and the highly spiritual people in the indigenous tribes, they knew when a gatekeeper was coming, and this named after when a gatekeeper would be born, because they're tapped into this Godhead, the spiritual realm like that, to where, these spirits, it says, other helpers accompanied them. These helpers did not reincarnate, but served as controls and guides or guardian angels for these mediums. They were tapped into these guardian angels. They were tapped into the mother. It's so deep. It broke down how, in that other book, because I recently read the entire thing again, it broke down how, because it was only one chapter about homosexuality. The rest was about, the village, how it was structured, and, relationships. So it broke down how when the mother was pregnant, the mother would channel the spirit of the baby to tell the elders and the village people so the baby in the womb could tell the village what their purpose was, right? So the mother, they so tapped in, the mother is speaking for the baby spirit, right? And tapped in, known as purpose, because when you are born, you forget, right? So they had it. And I think they would say that, the spirit of the baby would say something about, there's a rock or whatever to signify, or something to signify my purpose. So the people in the village would go get the rock or whatever to signify the purpose. So when they have their initiation rites, because we don't have initiation when they go into womanhood, motherhood, or manhood, womanhood. When the child goes into manhood or womanhood or gatekeeperhood, whatever, they go back to that rock, and then the elders remind them, when you were in your mother's womb, you told us this was your purpose. Or when you was in your mother's womb, You revealed to us that you are a gatekeeper. Okay, how crazy, how different, but we are not. It's totally different from being religious and being spiritual. Okay, so it says a new phenomenon occurred when the female souls began to reincarnate in male bodies. The negative charge housed within a positively charged body created a situation which geometrically enhanced communication with my dimension. To say it more clearly, these crossovers became the most powerful mediums that ever existed on your planet because their energy is a mixture of positive, the male body, and negative, the female soul. And when it comes to the because in the book it talked about male gatekeepers and female gatekeepers. So the male gatekeepers would be the very feminine men, and the female gatekeepers would be masculine women, right? And this book breaks down how lesbians or masculine women came a little bit later than the basically gay men and trans women, which is what it would be considered because people didn't really transition back in the day like that. I mean, 1500s before. So I'm talking about 1500s. I'm talking 5,000 plus years ago, 7,000 years ago, and even earlier than that. So it said when conditions would get better for women, or when they were in a position where they can carnate in an area or a situation that wasn't as insane towards women, then some of the people who had crossover into gay men / trans women, after a few years or lifetimes, could be 100 lifetimes, and the more lifetimes that they are in the male body, the more masculine they become. Because it asks, somebody asked in there, what's going on with the fluctuation between masculine and feminine gay men, right? And it breaks down how it depends on how many lifetimes you've had as a woman, right? So then when a crossover had been in many, many, many lifetimes as a man, and then crosses back over, when they cross back over into a female body with the female soul, so it basically says all crossovers are female soul people, they would still be more masculine because they have been masculinized over how many lifetimes? Maybe 100 lifetimes, right? And for me, I think I said it earlier, the only past lives that I've encountered so far, it's just been 2, but one of them, it was in ancient times, like around these times, one of my lifetimes. And then after that, or before that, my last life, I was a down low gay man, and I was masculine. I was very much masculine. So it was like the transition from down low masculine gay man, and now boom, masculine lesbian, right? That makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. And then it also makes sense to where how when like people who are masculine lesbians transition into trans men, and then they get with gay men. They probably got some people like, now you mean to tell me you transitioned to a goddamn man so you can still be gay? What the fuck wrong with you? I remember thinking that. I'm like, I know you did not transition into a man, then end up being in a straight relate or what? I don't know. You didn't transition to a man, now you dating men. What the fuck going on? But it makes sense because I even feel I remember feeling like after I came out and I'm like exploring my how I feel and different things like that, what I'm attracted to. And I was like, I feel like if I were to be a man, like if I just imagine myself as a man, I cannot imagine myself being a straight man. It doesn't even, I don't even understand how that makes sense. Like I feel like if I was zapped and I was zapped today and I was a man, like a full blown man or something, I feel like I would end up being gay. but only attracted to feminine men. It just it's literally something in your soul. Okay, I tried to explain that to somebody after I did. The way they looked at me, I was like, I'm never going to explain it again. 'Cause y'all ain't gonna get it. There is a charge in the soul. So to me, I feel like if I was in a I'm trying to think about how I feel like if I had this charge of, because I'm exactly 50-50 in my astrology, masculine and feminine. I'm half masculine, half feminine in my astrology. So I feel like the charge of my soul that I have right now in my body is attuned to feminine women. But if my body were in a male body, I feel like my charge, the balance of my charge would shift to where then I would be more attracted to feminine men. I don't even know how to explain it, but I think y'all get it. Like, it's like I would be a little too masculine or something. I don't know what it would be. I don't know what it is. It's like the chemistry of my body would be shifted in a way where then my attraction would be more towards feminine gay men than feminine women. I don't know. I don't know. Cause I might be like, if I imagine myself being a man right now, I probably would come off like metrosexual or something like that, a little too feminine. Cause you even think about how I'm literally thinking this out loud. But if you see like some trans men, so women who transition into men, right? They transition, but when you look at them and you hear them talking, they still got a little inflection. It sound it's a little feminine. I feel like I would have that little feminine inflection, and then it wouldn't be attractive to the type of women I want. And then I feel like that charge would also make me not attractive to feminine women like I like right now, because I would just be something else. Does that make sense? I don't know. So, yeah. I know y'all are this bitch confused. But actually if you're spiritual and if you understand the spirit and the soul, and then there's mind, there's body, and there's soul. So if you have different charges in your soul, negative, positive charge, like a battery in your soul, and that shifts, but then you combine that with your body, right? And you're changing the charge of your body. So my body is negatively charged, grounded, charged as a woman. I'm a female. I'm in a female body. But if I change my charge and I'm in a male body and I have testosterone pumping through my veins or something, then the rest of it is going to be shifted. And that's why there's, like, if you see some detransitioner videos, whether it's trans men or trans women, a lot of them say, I just never feel like myself. I don't feel like myself. I didn't feel like myself, right? I just never felt like myself, right? Because you shifted. So you're born, you have these, and this is the biggest thing that I feel like is so, so important, because even the rhetoric that the trans community is pushing is like the way they're born is a mistake. I'm born in the wrong body. I'm born in the wrong body. No. That's why it's like they're banking on LGBT people. So they want to strip us of our spirituality, right? Kick us out of the church, kick us out of our houses, our homes, our family, right? Indoctrinate us, right? Under the guise of acceptance and understanding. But then they want to separate spirit. That's what you have to separate spirit in order to imagine. And even religious people who go against gay people and who go against women and who go against other races when they back in the day. But I feel like a lot of these institutions are still very much racist. But you have to separate the people from spirit for people to be pushing this hatred towards women like a lot of religious institutions do. And I'm going to break it down how they colonize womanhood. Y'all probably waiting on it, but all of this context is important. You have to disconnect people from spirit in order for it to make sense that you're gonna try to gatekeep what grown ass people are in love with, right? Doesn't really make sense. Who they can fall in love with. If you want to think about soulmates, you're falling in love with somebody's soul. So how the hell, right? But y'all don't have that kind of energy for pedos in the church at all whatsoever, or incest people. Y'all don't even be pointing out murderers. Like, I never heard a sermon breaking down how you should not kill people. I literally never, like, the principles behind why you should, you don't hear why you should not steal. They don't be, but they love talking about gay people. They love talking about shacking up. They love talking about how women dress. Love if they're not talking about women, they're talking about gay people. Rarely are they ever coming for men for anything. They want, you always have a male pastor who's 90% of the time, 98% of the time gay as hell. I don't care who you want to call, where they at, whatever, what church they at. 98% of the pastors, that breaks it down in this book, are gay. So you got a gay man sitting up on stage telling women how to be wives. Like, shut the hell up, bitch. So, but that was a part of the colonization of womanhood. So let's go into it. Let's get it. Let's get right into it. So what was the origin of homosexuality? So the origin of homosexuality was when about 7,000 years ago, right on the very beginning, it talked about how men hated the fact that women had higher levels of intelligence. They had higher spiritual abilities. They had intuition. They had women's intuition. They were connected to God, connected to source, connected to the earth. They create life inside their body. God blessed them to have the ability to have life come out of their body, their physical body, right? They hated that. So it breaks down how when they moved from being in the country basically to being in the city, and they break it down like it's in the Stone Ages. That's how it was when my grandpa was growing up in the country, right? Any indigenous just in the country, it's more female focused. It's even in the city, it's still female focused, but it's just in a different way. But the country is more female focused because you're dependent on a garden, you're dependent on gathering, you're depending on a lot of different things that women do the best, right? So then when they moved to cities, they started having tools. Women really are inventing tools to make it easier for them to do the things that they have been doing, and so it doesn't take them as much time, so they have other things they can do, and men are able to do some of these things. But also they're saying, they created roles for themselves in society when they really had none other than hunting and protecting, even though they would be going off for years at a time. So clearly women would really be protecting themselves. So, groups of women. So, women were largely the doctors. They were largely the priestesses. They were the heads of the religious or spiritual institution. So their idea, like I said earlier, was to knock them off the block. And then after they had shut them up, kicked them out of church for so long, then they, it's because they had no real access to the spirit world, they made themselves God, basically. And the way that they made themselves God and justify that they are gods was that they made up this idea that women did not have souls. And this is, I want you to relate this to today. Everything that I'm saying, because this is still resonating, it's still imprinted in people's soul. Okay? they came up with the hypothesis that not only are we know on an energetic level, on a spiritual level, on every kind of level, that women have intuition, that women have a connection to the real source, the real Godhead, right? And they're highly intelligent, but we're gonna lie to ourselves. You see, there's a lot of men that lie to themselves to this day. That's why a lot of them are so insecure, because they know the truth. It's energetically in them, right? They need women to lie to them at all times for them to function. But anyway, so they know this, but they have to do everything in their power to get everybody to forget this fact for a couple generations. So after they got everybody to forget this, it only takes 2 generations of brainwashing, right? 1 or 2 generations of brainwashing and silence. So then they decide, you know what? Women don't have souls. So women went from having women's inspiration being directly connected to source, right? And everybody understood and knew this, to women not having souls at all, right? And then they believed that God was in their balls, right? Because in their mind, women don't get pregnant until they have sex with a man. Therefore, God is in their balls. They believe this so heavy. You ever heard phallic worship, phallus worship, whatever? This is basically the gist of it. So, and then these same people who are basically a part of this phallus worship religions, which is all patriarchal religions at this point, including largely Christianity. Christianity is the most phallic, probably, really a lot of them are, but it's just really one of the most phallic worshiping religions. Islam, all of them, okay? So they really truly believe that to the point, because they didn't have a Bible at this time. They believe this to the point where when they swore, right? When they swore to God, right? Now imagine them in church, in some kind of temple, because only men were in the temple. Women weren't even allowed in the temple or to speak in public at all whatsoever, because they didn't want no spirit coming through and saying, bitch, y'all, what the fuck wrong with y'all? Ain't no damn God in y'all motherfucking balls. So they had to keep women completely quiet. So when they say like, yeah, man, I don't know why they ran up to me the other day and blah, blah, blah. And the other person like, man, you lying. And he like, I swear to God. When they said swear to God, they had to put their hand on another man's balls to say, I swear to God. So basically, homeboy like, oh, you lying? I swear to God. This is so stupid. They literally thought that's where God was. That's who God was and where God was. Right? And if you think about it, and I didn't break this down in the last video because I didn't even realize, I'm just realizing this today. It was their way of is one of the earliest ways they colonized womanhood. So we're going step by step, because one of the things that the earlier matriarchal societies, and don't just think primitive or anything like that. It literally was fully functioning metropolitan societies. They worship goddesses, right? And one of the main things they worshipped about goddesses was the fact that they gave birth, because it's just like, okay, well, the logic is humans come from women. And the only way you can come into the earth is through a vagina. So they would praise and they would worship that concept, right? That is a coming into the earth. That actually kind of makes sense, right? But for them to colonize and put their own male spin on it, they just made this idea that, guess what? Humans don't come from vaginas. They actually come from, and people still think this, there are a lot of men and women I just heard somebody say this day. People say it every day, all the time, all over the world, till this day. They talk about, since you was swimming in your daddy's ball sack. Ain't nobody swimming in there. I hate to tell you. Look up the definition of semen. Okay, it is fertilizer. Ain't nobody swimming in no man. This is what I need you to understand. There is no human life swimming anywhere inside of a man. Women are born with all the eggs, right? That is how they can determine whether a fetus is a male or a female. They can detect the gonads or the eggs developing in the female fetus when they're in their mother's stomach. Okay, that's where the baby's at. They ain't no balls. And I was wondering why, like, I kept harping on this in a lot of different videos, and this is actually breaking down why that is important for us to change that program, because it really sparked in me, and I've said this several times, when this man came on one of my videos where I'm talking about genealogy, and this dumbass said, I don't know why you're so interested in genealogy when you can't procreate as a lesbian. I said, wait, bitch, what? How can I not procreate as a lesbian? And let's break this down, because I'm gonna break this down all the way, because this is the earliest form of colonization of womanhood. So we got to get down to the roots. I said, bitch, what's going to stop me from procreating? I said, you can do procreative activities without having sex. Hello, have you heard of sperm banks? Have you heard of IVF, all this other stuff? This was not created for lesbians. It was created for infertile straight people, right? When men cannot fertilize the egg, right? But it is fertilizer. That's why it's so cheap. If you look up the cost of male sperm, it's not y'all feelings gonna be hurt, but oh well, motherfuckers been lying to y'all for 7,000 goddamn years. It's time for y'all to hear some truth. If you look up the price of some damn sperm compared to the price of some fertilizer at Home Depot for some damn grass, the price difference is not much. It's not much. It is fertilizer. I'm gonna keep saying this. I'm gonna keep saying it's fertilizer. That's it. That's all. And I was guided to early this morning. It's like my guys just want me to break some things down for y'all. Okay. I don't know what made me just think about looking up bees and how bees operate. I don't know why. And I think it's because I need to break this down right here. The way honeybee colonies operate, there is a queen bee. There is no king bee. There is a queen bee, right? Okay, and don't be mad. This is the facts. There's a queen bee, okay? The only form and sex that is in the hive, okay, the honeybee hive, is females, okay? The male drones, that's what they're called, are off. They are kicked out and they're off in a different, I don't even remember what they called it. Maybe some kind of man hive. That's not what they called it, but they're in a man cave, okay? Out somewhere else, okay? And they usually only birth 12 to 15 of these drones, okay? And these bees, these honey bees, right? The way it works, okay, so all the worker bees are females, right? And only the queen bee procreates, okay? So she only procreates a few times a year or something like that. So what happens is a few times a year, and it says all these male bees that are born, they all have a 0.1% chance of ever mating with the queen bee, even if they're born, right? And they select who's born, okay? The worker bees select who's born, okay? I'm breaking down how this works, right? So there's mating season, right? She mates with 12 to 15 bees. Now, y'all want to talk about some bullshit? Single woman, single mother, whatever, baby daddies. They don't give a damn who the baby daddy is, okay? Now, well, the baby daddy has to be the strongest. That's for one, right? They have to be the strongest and most likely to have some healthy sperm. Number one. She has something, I think they call it sperminate or sperm bump, something inside her body that acts as a sperm bank, to where I think they said she only has to mate one time in her lifetime, the queen bees, right? Because when she has the mating season, she takes all the sperm and it goes into this little sperm bank that's inside her body, right? And then there's all this larva, right? They have all the bee has all these different eggs, and she drops. You can go and look up a picture of it. It looks gross. I don't know if you want to, but it was in the article. She has all these different larvae, right? And she could see which ones, right? The worker bees can see which ones are the female larvae, right? So, they do not straight up don't fertilize the male larva. They don't get fertilized, right? Only 12 to 15 or a few larvae, and they look to see which ones is healthy. They're selective breeding, right? And so she drops, right? She drops the sperm on all the female larvae because those are the ones that are going to be working and producing year round. And that's going to be in the hive. They're protectors, right? They go out and they pollinate flowers. They do all the work. And the drone bees, the male bees, literally all they do is they're in the man cave, and they're waiting for their season. And if they don't get a season again with the queen bee, they go try to find some other queen bees if something pop up. Otherwise, they die. And then the other thing is, if they do mate with the queen bee right after, they die. They die right after. Okay, so it's not great, but that's actually the evolution of everything. It all starts as female, and they start off reproducing parthenogenically, which is basically just the female duplicating itself, right? And then over time there needs variation within the different environments. If it becomes toxic and unhealthy environment where it becomes too hard for the woman to, or the female to reproduce on her own, then she creates a male, right? She creates a male version of herself. So then there is fertilizer, and literally the male is its only purpose is to fertilize the egg, right? So this idea, so I went through all that, right? I was guided to that article so I can go through all that to break it down in nature, okay, that ain't no baby swimming around in no sperm and no fertilizer. Nowhere in nature is babies floating in any male thing. Okay? Let's break that curse right here. Let's break that curse, that lie. Lord, break the curse in the name of Jesus. That is not real. Okay? Okay, now let's continue. So, these doofuses believe, but really, they were copying women. They were colonizing womanhood. So they're telling people that women have no souls. Okay. And this is the next thing. This is where it gets really sick and disgusting. In the Hittite kingdom, at the age of 3 to 4, they made all the mothers in the kingdom document that they had when they have a female child. So when they are 3 to 4, the priests could do a ceremony, right? And they called it a baptism in blood and water. And I broke this down in the other one. It is absolutely disgusting and disgraceful. So they would use a marble shaped phallus, or a phallus shaped marble that was too large for a grown woman. They would use it to stretch open these girls and I hope you can figure that out and have to break that down, to open these girls. So then so in their mind, they could give the girl a soul. 3 priests. Okay? So imagine if they think that, so they can give the girl a soul, right? And a lot of times these 3 to 4 year olds would die and they bleed to death, right? And what I did not think about before, because I was just so traumatized, I couldn't even really think after I heard that this was ever a thing. What they were attempting to do and what the message is that these disgusting P words, you can finish, pedals, I'll call them pedals. These disgusting pedals, in their mind, they are giving birth to these females. That is their way of giving birth to females. And it's not just in ancient times. That is today. Anytime a man is saying, anytime you disagree with a man, and his first instinct is to say, are you single? Do you have a man? That is the same thing, because in his mind, you do not have a soul until a man gives birth to you through his ball sack. If a man is not giving birth to you through his ball sack, you don't have a soul. Therefore, anything that comes out of your mouth is soulless and meaningless and means nothing. And it doesn't even after it's a never ending thing, right? Then they say, oh, you're not being wife. Even when you're married, you're not being wife. You're not being wife, right? You're not listening. Unless you're being penetrated by a male in some way, right? Whether it's his beliefs, if you're not receiving his beliefs, you're not receiving what he's saying or whatever, you don't have a soul, right? He's not giving birth to you, right? If he's not controlling you, he's not giving birth to you, therefore you have no soul. It is very, very deep. It is very entrenched, okay? And a lot of women go along with this, and I'll break down the mammy, the pick me, and the mother dearest. All this goes into the same thing. But it blew my mind to think about this was their way of, again, still till this day, colonizing womanhood, thinking that their ball sack gives women birth. Give birth to women, period. Just gives birth to women. Same thing with the Adam and Eve. It is just, think about, the Hittites were alive and thriving during biblical times. So this Adam and Eve idea of creation, right? And it breaks down how there's so many different contradictions in the Bible, and how it breaks down the name of the people who are adding particular things and for what reason in this book, okay, in the Bible. This idea of Adam and Eve, I guarantee you the first rendition of the Adam and Eve story was not Eve coming out of the rib, right? That's just what they say now, right? Because it makes it sound better, a little bit better. Guarantee if we go to the original story of Adam and Eve, in some way Adam ejaculated and Eve jumped out the ground out of where he. That's what it really is. But even if you just use the rib, what kind of bullshit? How does a woman come out of? How does a grown woman just? Let's stop thinking in fairy tale. Because anytime I've ever challenged this story, people say, well, it's in the Bible. The Bible says it. But and I don't want to break it down and say it's just a stupid fairy tale. I want to break it down to where there's roots in the colonization of womanhood. Because what male on earth is giving birth to a woman or anything? And if that's not happening anywhere, why are we accepting it in the Bible? Why are we accepting a man giving birth, appropriating, and colonizing womanhood, right? Because what do they do right after they colonize womanhood? They demonize the woman. They demonize womanhood. So not only is Adam giving birth to a woman, right? The woman that Adam, the grown woman that Adam gives birth to, the grown ass woman that Adam gives birth to, just so happens to be evil, talks to a snake in a garden, and ruins mankind. We have to start questioning these things, right? Because if we were actually to think about the truth of what happened, right? When these religions that are that colonize womanhood to put men on top, right, for the purpose of making them feel like they're needed and have a purpose in the world, right? By lying to everybody about how birth is created so they can be pedals, right? So they can be rampant pedals, right? And act a fool and do whatever they want with no grounding in spirit, okay? But they want to say we don't have no damn souls, right? Okay. That was the fall of man. It even breaks down in here when they started to cut women off completely. They cut off the communication from spirit and plunged the entire world into the dark ages and into the age of ignorance. Okay. So really the Adam and Eve story was told in reverse. If you look historically, if you look archaeologically, if you look for the actual truth, the Adam and Eve story was told in reverse. Okay? Because there's hoteps that they want to say you know, oh, Christianity is stupid, it's this and that, but they want to keep certain parts. Right? I mean, they want to keep the part that makes them feel good, right? I'm not saying Christianity as a whole is terrible, that you should not think anything about it, but you should do your research and challenge stupid shit. That's what I feel like. So that was the part of colonization of womanhood. Okay? And now I went off on a tangent. I don't remember where I was at. I talked about how they were appropriating this concept of giving birth. And basically, that was so traumatizing. And that went on for hundreds of years to the point where the Great Council decided, and I said it earlier, that they would allow women's souls, female souls, to come in male bodies. So then what they would do over time, over the course of hundreds of years, they caught on to the fact that there were these men that had feminine energy and they had the ability to channel mediums, right? Or to be mediums and channel spirit. And so that's when they decided to go against homosexuality, because they couldn't just say, well, we're gonna kill you because you're a medium, because the people believed mediums. They saw their lives improving because of the higher vibrational spiritual messages. So they had to go for the sexuality. Same thing with women, right? They couldn't say, oh, well, we're going to silence y'all because y'all are too smart and y'all are too connected to spirit. No, they had to say women don't have souls. That's why we're attacking them. They don't have souls. Same thing that men do today. Oh, well, she was a hoe. Oh, well, she's a prostitute. Oh, well, she's a 304. So me assaulting her, sexually assaulting her, or whatever she asked for, because she the way she was dressed. Anything. It don't matter what the hell it is, right? It don't matter what the hell it is. But a lot of these people, I can't imagine the way these men treat women. I can't imagine them believing that women have souls, treating them that way. It's either that they don't believe women have souls, or they the ones motherfucking walk around without no damn soul, because they really don't be having no conscience a lot of times. So let's just tell the truth, shame the devil. I'm not gonna be as extreme and say, oh, men don't have souls, but there's a lot of soulless ass men. There's no way you taking yourself out, your child out, and your mama and your wife and everything, and you got a soul walk around. I'm just sorry. I don't know. Something ain't right with it. It's programmed backwards. Okay. So, um, the colonization of womanhood. So then they got this bright idea. Well, uh, these men have phalluses. They have phalluses. All right. They have God in their ball sack. So we're going to kill them. if oh shit, I'm probably gonna mess up. We're gonna take them out. I gotta change my words. We're gonna take them out. We're gonna burn them alive if they are mediums, but we're gonna tell them, you know what, you should just join the church. You should be a priest. You should just come and be a priest, right? And then you'll be protected as long as you don't go against the church, and as long as you channel spirit to tell us how to make this money, channel spirit to tell us how to win a battle and how to destroy other countries, and you know what we need to do. And then not only will we make you a priest, we will actually make you saints in the church. You will get all the money that the other priests get. You'll be treated like royalty. Only thing we ask you is just say, I'm not gay no more. I love women, except you're celibate because you're a priest, right? So you're not messing with any, you're not dealing with women because you're a priest, but you love women. You not gay no more. You delivered. That's all you have to say. That's all you had to say, and you'll be treated like royalty. And this is what happened, and it's still happening. Some of the most atrocious things, right? Movements, right? They have used gay men, all right, or trans women in this patriarchal society. So you hear these trans women talk, well, it's because you're brainwashed in the patriarchy. It's because you're Well, in ancient history, the gays were integral, because it would have fell completely apart had there not been somebody with some type of mediumship abilities to be able to write their documents and speak to the people in a convincing enough way to give them some half truth, give them a little taste of truth that they just need in their soul, but not enough to enlighten them. Because if they did that, then they would take them out. Right? And so gay men and trans women have been integral in the colonization of womanhood since ancient times, right? And so now they have, because basically they gave them privileges for being in a male body, for having phalluses. It does not matter, right? And you know, for people who come out now, it's not the same as coming out in ancient times. It's not. They're not going to tie you to the stake right now, in America at least. In other countries, they're still doing this, right? We're very privileged in America, right? All this stuff these trans women is talking and all that, they would have been burned long time ago at the stake, okay? Just for no other reason than because that they saying that who they are, right? So it even breaks down here. The church was a safe place, right? It was a come up for gay men and trans women. And also, and not to say it's just a wonderful existence, but it's a lot better than women's position, because a part of their part of what allowed them to get into the higher rankings in the church was their female charge, but because it's in a male body, right? Their female soul, but because it's in a male body, it is worship as the phallus worship. It still works, but that also entailed that you make sure that these women don't say shit. You make sure that they don't rise up, right? And so because they don't talk barely about lesbians at all, right? This was in the 80s, okay? And these are nothing but men. But it says enough for me to have right? And then I have another book about the goddess Mother Earth, something like that. But largely, women have been. It's literally the 70s and 80s when women really started to get rights, like serious rights, and or like the early 1900s. We're talking about 7,000 years. But even, and also today, this morning I was guided to, they're still doing clitorectomies. They're still doing clitorectomies all over the Middle East and large parts of Africa. And another procedure, I forgot what the name of it was, but it's basically a procedure to pull out the different tubes that allow, including the clitoris, that allow women to have pleasure that have nothing to do, like have pleasure during sex. Right? This is how extreme the obsession with keeping women down is. In the book that I read that is actually by a woman about women, it breaks down how literally the clitoris is the only sex organ which its sole purpose is to give women pleasure during sexual pleasure. It has no reproductive purpose at all whatsoever. There's no animal is the one thing that separates humans from any other animal in the world. Okay, any other mammal, right? Women evolved to be able to have sexual pleasure for no other reason, no reproductive reason at all whatsoever. So a woman can orgasm, right, without there being any reproductive purpose to it, for the sole purpose of connection, emotion, pleasure, right? These men know this, jealous of this, because in that book breaks down how men's body, the male body, is not much evolved from any other male animal. Okay? Like, women evolved as humans. Like, it says that women is the evolution of the female body to be able to have face fronting sex, which allows for connection instead of doggy style all the time. Face fronting sex, to be able to connect emotionally and look eye to eye with the person they're making love with, and not just have sex for procreative reasons every few times a year, because every other animal, they only do this a few times a year, right? Women are the reason why that humans can have sex for no reproductive reason at all whatsoever. And the clitoris is what allows women to have orgasms for no. And so when I hear men and I hear this epidemic of women not getting orgasms, right? It goes back into women want to make themselves believe that these men don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They don't know where the clitoris is. Bullshit, right? We in America, we have a lot more privileges and different things like that. We have a long ass way to go. But it is very important to know the roots of a lot of this shit, because when I hear these dumbasses talking about they don't know where the goddamn clitoris is, to me, it's that rooted of them literally cutting it off, right? So women do not experience any sexual pleasure, and their body is only used to reproduce and to please a man. It's not to please themselves at all whatsoever. That's why they want to shame women for using toys and being with other women and all this other stuff, and they want to want to talk about lesbians. But guess what? Thanks to the internet, right? Women know what's up. They literally say 70% of all women who watch porn watch lesbian porn. Okay, why? Because when I saw them break down the evolution of how the female body is evolved to actually have pleasure and emotional connection and all these other things aside from reproductive purposes, pumping and dumping, okay, then the light bulbs came off as to why women are so attracted to lesbian love making. And it's because when lesbians make love, we're evolved. It's evolved. It's evolved. And if you think about, and no shade, but y'all love to shade the fuck us. Y'all love to shade us, talk shit about the strap and all this other stuff as if we need one. We know what to do, bitch. But we will play with y'all. We'll play into what the fuck you're saying. But we're very much evolved. But if you look at when men are doing things together, what's the difference? The dogs. Dogs. Like dogs. And then got the nerve to be talking shit about lesbians and what lesbians do. But there's a jealousy. There's insecurity. Because we could get whatever size phallus we want. But then at the same time, we got we got the clit. Okay? And we can still feel everything. Right? But we're evolved. And the shit that they talk shit about the most, the shit that get them so triggered, scissoring. They're so triggered by that. They want to talk so much shit. But in reality, when I thought about it, when they thought about talk about how women evolve to have forward facing love making, to me that also sounds like, now if you're with another woman, you can y'all both can have equal pleasure, and it evolved to allow that as well. And if you know about how women cycle, when women are around each other for long periods of time, their periods become in sync. And to me, and when I first heard that, I was like, to me, God is like, yeah, we go sync y'all shit up. So then, if you don't want to get down, while y'all having, it's in sync, right? Motherfucker want to talk about stuff that's not natural. It's natural, okay? So and we're evolved. Even in this book, it says humans evolved to be able to have same-sex relationships dependent on the environment. Every animal has evolved to have same-sex relationship dependent on the environment and what is needed in the relationship. Sometimes if in the kingdom or whatever, if a situation is overpopulated, there will be more same-sex relationships, right? But even beyond that, there are animals that are more same-sex than opposite sex, like ducks. All the ducks you see swimming, they pair bond with the same sex. Okay, there are species of monkeys that only pair bond and only develop relationships with the same sex. Well, how do they how they gonna populate? How they gonna populate? Same way the goddamn bee populates. Same way the goddamn bee populates. When it's mating season, okay, boom. When it's not, okay, bye. Why do people act like that's so confusing? All right. So basically, I done went off on a tangent like I do sometimes. But they put these gay men on a pedestal because it is the ultimate colonization of womanhood. Now, there have been these crossovers who stayed in their purpose, who said, I'm going to speak from spirit. I'm going to be a prophetess. That is what I've been guided to do. And they say a lot of the prophets in the Bible were crossovers. It breaks this down. Were crossovers. They had female souls. It says, if you notice, a lot of these prophets didn't have wives. And if they did have wives, they had a terrible relationship a lot of times. Right? Because the charge of their soul was not compatible. Right? So there were prophets that and prophetesses that served their purpose, but there's also a lot of false gatekeepers. They talk about false gatekeepers in that other book, right? Who use their gifts for the purpose of the priesthood and the patriarchy. And same thing that's going on in Hollywood. There are Hollywood gatekeepers, right, who are using their influence to support the corporations and different things like that, but not in their gifts, their creative gifts, everything else to support the corporations, right? And to move up in the patriarchy, right? Uh but not to enlighten the people, which is why they came in this way, right? But there still is others that do, right? But when I even more so when I hear them talking about, oh well, you're brainwashing the patriarchy, that's why you don't accept me as being just a woman, but I want you to be a cis woman. I'm gonna have to take you. I have to tell you to take several seats, because the only reason why you are having a platform to speak, right, is because they realize that there's people are not subscribing to the church as much as they used to. So now they've created a new church for the LGBT, because they know that we are, they know our ancient history, and the charge of our soul is connected to religion and being religious, okay, and being spiritual. So they've given us a replacement religion called LGBTism. Okay, LGBTians. Okay, LGBTians in this bitch. LGBTism in this bitch. Okay, we have a new cult called LGBTism. Okay, and who's the priest? Who the head priest? Who's the priesthood? The trans women and the gay men, the male borns. Okay, because they are born with phalluses. This it don't matter what you try to say, blah 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 blah, blah. You are given, okay, privileges, as especially now. Now, before trans women, they wasn't messing with trans women if they were out and proud and whatever. Same thing with gay men, but they co-opted it. They were like, okay, cool. Well, since we push, and really lesbians pushed for acceptance. And they never really tell the story of lesbians when it comes to LGBT. They really don't. But largely lesbian, and it was the masculine lesbians, the ones who have been men for many lifetimes, cross over as men many lifetimes, and then cross back over, and then started fiercely fighting for women's rights, fighting for women to own property, fighting for women to, all these different things. So, right? It's time. We need to wake up and acknowledge that womanhood is not just recently being colonized. It's been colonized for over 7,000 years. Another part of the colonization of womanhood is marriages. And I also want to break down pick-me's, and this is going to be triggering for a lot of women, because women have been heavily conditioned with this marriage hood stuff. And some of these things is like it slowly was revealed to me, because I've never had beef against marriage, right? But from understanding this Hittite kingdom stuff, right, and its slow progression, right, because what I didn't say earlier is they would do these things to these little girls, right, and by the age of 12, because these idiots didn't know anything how menstruation worked, or they say they didn't know how it worked. I don't know. I think they were just jealous. They were hating, right? Because in ancient indigenous tribes all over the world, they understood the menstrual cycle to be a time when women are have heightened spiritual gifts, right? They're even more tapped in spiritually during their menstrual cycle, their moon cycle. The whole society was told time based on women's moon cycle, because it was connected to the moon. So they knew when the women in the tribe, they were getting on their moon time, okay, then the moon is coming out, so we know what time it is, what time of year, what time of day, whatever. And they would have their lodges, their women's lodges. There's so many ways womanhood has been colonized. But they would have their lodges and their sanctuaries where only women were allowed. You see how I talked about how all the women were kicked out of the sanctuary of the place? Only women were allowed. And they would go during their moon time, and all the women would share their downloads and different things the spirit is telling them and different information, right? And they would share it between each other, and no men were allowed, right? So they copy that with their churches, with their sanctuary, with their lodges. Even if you think about the Freemason lodges, right? They literally walk around in dresses. Same with the priests, walk around in dresses, right? It is all to it is all to colonize womanhood, right? Walking around in frilly dresses in this lodge, they're literally copying women. So when they hit 12 and they hit puberty, all the men, so 3 to 4, they did this baptism in blood and water. And the true baptism, the original baptism, is when babies are born. So again, that goes into colonization of womanhood. You don't need to be baptized by no grown ass man. That is just another way of them colonizing womanhood, because it's a way of them making it seem like the first baptism, which is humans coming to earth, right? And that's where they have this Adam and Eve bullshit. When humans come to earth, they are baptized in blood and water already. They're baptized coming to earth, right? God clearly knew what he was doing, right? The Godhead, however you want to call it, you incarnated, you were baptized into birth, you are chosen to come to earth, to carnate. How do you know you was chosen to carnate? You came out your mother's womb. You were baptized in blood and water. That's it. What do you need a man putting your baby in the water for? That already happened, right? It is the only reason they're doing it. It is a way of saying, oh, the first one wasn't good enough because Eve, because Eve ruined all mankind. So coming out of Eve is not good enough. You need a priest to baptize you or your child, right? To wash away your sins, right? And the other book broke down how even Jesus dying on the cross, the sacrifice, the crucifix, the way they retell the story, because the original story was Jesus is a prophet and he was killed by the priest for going against the priest, just like how a lot of prophets, gays, women were killed, burnt at the stake. No different than the witch hunts that they did with women, because they were so afraid of their spiritual abilities that they just killed them, took them out. I gotta change my vocabulary. Took them out if they had any inkling that they had spiritual abilities, and that they were open to actually exploring those abilities and telling people and teaching people some intelligent shit. Same thing. Okay. But these people who are these same priests who took Jesus out, right? A few generations later, they decided to co-opt Christianity, okay? And they were already in the business of co-opting what it means to be a woman, the Roman Empire. These fools sat up there and had women with chastity belts on, right? The wife and the daughters, while they off for years at a time, they got their wife with chastity belts because they're so obsessed with women's sexuality, okay? And womanhood, okay? They have to control it that heavy, right? So this idea that Jesus died and sacrificed for our sins, and he's rebirthing through his sacrifice, right? Through his sacrifice, he's rebirthing humanity where their sins are washed away, right? It is another way, the retelling of the story, and making it seem like that's what actually happened, versus he was just killed from the same type of rhetoric that people speak at the church right now, right? That was another form of them co-opting womanhood, right? And it even broke down how showing the cut and the blood running down, right? That's like the menstrual cycle, but it again is co-opting in motherhood of birthing humanity. Men do not birth humanity. Males do not birth humanity, right? You don't rebirth humanity. Okay? you right? So and it broke down how, they want to constantly remind us of the sacrifice that Jesus made for all of our sins to be cleansed and for us to be able to be reborn in Christ, right? But at the same time, when women who actually give birth, right, actually do these things, these spiritual things, these, miraculous things like baptizing children into the world, carrying children, right, gestating children in their stomach and birthing them, y'all act like it ain't shit. Right? It ain't shit. What's the big deal? You're a woman, that you're built to be able to do this, aren't you? Right? But when Jesus sacrificed for our sin, for 1,000, 2,000 years, we still thinking about it. How many women die in childbirth, right? Bringing life into the world, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life, or the light, or whatever. Life is through me. Life comes through me. Life comes through Jesus. How many people, right? Life does not come through Jesus. Life comes through women, right? It is another way for them to colonize womanhood. And there's versions of this in different patriarchal religions, but it's a constant appropriation, co-opting, right? And they want to call it fertility cults in ancient time, when the ancient people actually worship women for actually, like, goddesses, for being fertile, not just fertile, but for actually bringing life into the earth, and having the real sacrifice to allow people to be born, and actually have the real baptism in blood and real water, right, from actually birthing a human being into existence, right? They want to call it a fertility cult. They want to make it seem like it was primitive and all these other things. But, like, there's even statues of women with all these different breasts, because breasts represented abundance. It's literally food for your child, right? A baby could survive for years just on their mother's breast. That is abundant. That's abundant. That's right. And then, talk about how disrespectful so many men are when their women is pregnant, right? But back in the day, they wasn't really allowing men around the women when they pregnant like that. They were surrounded by nothing but women, because women respect motherhood, and they understand what women are going through, and they would take care of the woman, right? They speak into the baby, right? It's super, just on a just totally different paradigm. It's just a complete and total paradigm shift. But a lot of this is rooted in the colonization of womanhood from ancient times. And so now I want to break down the mammy, the pick-me, and the mother dearest situation. Now, I went off into some other tangents, but with this Hittite kingdom stuff, they would kick the girl. They would basically pass the girls around. Literally, it talked about how from 4 years old up until their first menstrual period, any man in the household could just give any woman in the household away to any man for whatever reason, as a gift, as a trophy, as a whatever, have her do whatever you want with her, right? And men had total freedom, did whatever the hell they want. Literally, no repercussions for anything, and women couldn't do nothing, right? Literally, when they get to the age of having a menstrual period, they're kicked out of the house and usually starve to death or catch some kind of disease by the time they're 20, right? And then it said they would reincarnate over and over and over and over again with the same horrible, dismal existence. Okay. And so that's when they allowed women to carnate in male bodies. Okay. Origin of homosexuality. Then it started to change. Then they started to allow marriages, right? So, but they said even when women would be married, I'm saying women, children, because it wasn't no women, when they would marry off children, their first sexual encounter had to be with a priest, because again, they believed that these priests, right, had the ability to birth women soul. Okay, so basically to birth women. Okay. So then I had a revelation, and I had never thought about this before, right? But that's why history is important. This is before I read this book. I was like, bride and groom, because first I saw this video of the ceremony where the bride sits on a chair, and the husband lifts up her dress and goes in and grabs a piece of garment, like a little piece of underwear or something, a girdle, whatever, grabs a girdle with either his hand or his mouth. And everybody is watching. There's children, the parents, everything is watching. Everybody's watching, surrounding, taking pictures, everything. And then he throws it to a group of men. I was just like, what the hell is this? I haven't been to a wedding in a very long time. And I was just like, what the hell is this creepy ass shit? What is this? What is this? Right? And I started going down the rabbit hole. But then I thought, bride and groom. Because the history of it, which a lot of people don't know, the history of it was, before there were honeymoons, the bride and groom would literally go and have sex at the wedding reception. Like wherever the wedding was, they would have sex right then and there, and everybody would watch. Everybody would be in the same room watching, because they're consummating the marriage, which is another way of giving birth to a woman, giving a woman a soul, right? And so everybody wanted to watch to make sure the woman got her soul. Creepy. And the people would be pulling on the bride's dress to get pieces of the dress for good luck. Literally the physical dress. While they're creepy shit. And then this dawned on me from reading this, right? A few things. After I read that, did the research, I'm like, this is sick and disgusting. What? Okay. So then it evolved to what it is now, which a lot of people don't even know where it comes from, right? And then they have the honeymoon after, right? So then I thought, bride and groom, groomer, grooming, right? I'm like, grooming. And then I thought about how original marriages, these were children that they were marrying, right? These were not grown women. They were not grown adults that were getting married, right? So you think about the Hittite kingdom. They were probably marrying off children when they were 4 or 5 years old. 4 or 5 years old. 11 was probably old, okay, when they first started doing marriages, which is more humane than just having them tossed around until they are 12, and then they throw them in the street, okay, to die, right? Hit the wall. That is where that hit the wall bullshit comes from. Literally, it's ancient. All this stuff that they say is ancient. So, I thought about the proposal. Now you think about a man getting on his knee and proposing to a woman, right? Oh, it's so romantic. Oh my gosh, everybody screams and yells. Blah, blah, blah. Knowing this historical context from history for marriage, I realized for the first time, 9 times out of 10, The reason why the man would kneel on one knee to propose is because he was proposing to a child. He was proposing to a child, right? You ever think about when a man is talking to a little girl and he kneels down and talks to her like this, in the same exact way that he kneels down to propose? Because when the original weddings and proposals were happening, the grown ass man will be kneeling down talking to a child. Asking, it really probably wasn't no asking for the hand in marriage. There wasn't asking for shit. Because it probably was already bought and paid for or gifted. And then I looked up, okay, what does bride mean? What does bride mean? We be using all this shit. What does bride mean? There is I think it's Germanic definition. I looked this up recently. Literally means house gift. House gift. Okay, a house gift. And if you think about the historical context of what, literally, I told you, they said they were passing little girls, or when this patriarchal shit started, they were passing little girls around from after they were given birth by a male priest. Disgusting. They were passed around and given to different men as gifts for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter how high their stature was or whatever. Because they were born female, they were just sex objects at any age. Okay. So yeah. And so that's the same thing with this little ritual where the girl is sitting down. It's just disgusting when you actually think about where these rituals started. But again, it was a colonization of womanhood. The whole concept of marriage is a part of the colonization of womanhood. It is a way to birth women. Again, like I said, how many men, when you disagree with a man, is the first thing he says is, are you single? Do you have a man? Are you married? When are you going to get married? Right? And this is where Mother Dearest, the Pygmies, and all these others come from. Right? Now, in the ages of where women had no way to survive without a man, without being married, literally, they hit menstrual period, they're thrown off to the street. Every woman thrown into the street at 12 when they start menstruating, and they die by the time they're 20. Okay, because they're kicked out. And they don't have a community like they did before. They're not allowed and taught to be around each other or to speak in public. So how can you have a community with other women if you are not allowed to speak in public? Okay, did this on purpose. Colonization of womanhood. So, when they started having marriages, of course, there was probably more women and girls than males. So if a mother actually wants her daughter to survive, for one, they had the mother to watch this baptism in blood and water where these priests were giving these little girls a soul. Okay. So for generations and generations, these women had to, and this is the big thing. This is a big thing to remember. They were saying God is behind why this is happening. God wants you to not speak, women. God wants us to give you as many souls as we possibly can, and you just have to deal with it and shut up and don't speak, otherwise we're gonna burn you at the stake. Okay. They were saying this is God, right? And so in the book it talks about how, these poor mothers had to watch their daughters go through this, right? But if you think with critical historical thinking, right? Let's think critical historical thinking. And let's think psychology, right? In order for the mother to like function and not be a puddle of emotion and a puddle of despair at all times forever, they had to have hardened themselves towards their daughters. You just think about it. They had to put a wall up emotionally, right? They had to 9 times 10 start dreading when a female was born. There's still women till this day dread when they have a female child. When they talk about having, I don't want no girl because this world and blah blah blah. She might be fast and da 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 da. Right? I don't want to go through what I go through. Da, da. But then they have a child, and they have this wall up towards their child. It's ancient, right? So they have this wall up towards their child, right? Because they know the fate of all females is the same, right? So, these people in the book, they were like, oh, poor mothers. And not to say not poor mothers, but they probably weren't crying and emotional, right? After 100 years, especially when this has become normal and everybody's saying this is something that God is doing. Like, this is God's work. Okay. We're giving your daughter a soul, just like we gave you a soul. And she had been through it herself. So then when there's marriages and these mothers can see how their child can maybe survive past 20, right? If they want their child to live and survive, well, they're going to have to try to do everything in their power to try to make their daughter be at 4. Okay, starting at 4, right? So this is the other side of this whole dynamic, right? At 4 years old, if she wants her child to survive and past 20, she has to begin to prepare her daughter to be groomed. She has to begin to prepare her daughter to be groomed, literally groomed at 4 and 5 and 6 years old. And so there is an ancientness to when people talk about how, this happened to me or whatever, and my mom didn't believe me, or she, she took sides with the man or whatever. And a lot of times it's a man who's providing. It might be a stepfather, it might be the father, right? It's the same scarcity and ancientness of those times, and not even just about scarcity, but also about not going against a man at all, lest you be killed, right? And so that pattern likely began there. So of course, then at the same time, so you're creating pygmies in the children at 4 and 5 years old. You're creating pygmies, and people still create pygmies at a very young age like that. But you're also having the mother dearest. You're having the mother who's throwing their daughter at grown ass men at 4 and 5 years old. What the mindset is, I want you to survive, right? And then as time went on, it became, I want you to have high status. But it's that same ancient root for that, right? And that ancient root is imprinted in people's souls, right? And so unless you deprogram that imprint in your soul, if it's there, right, and you can easily figure out the patterns, right, it's gonna be there, right? And so I hope that some people can start to forgive their parents, even though it's horrific, but forgiving some of the things that their parents do, because some of that stuff is ancient imprints in their soul, right? And if they're not doing the work, right, doesn't mean you have to be all up under them and best friends or whatever the case may be, but just to be able to see that there is some things that may not be fully in their conscious control. A lot of people are not moving consciously at all whatsoever, right? Even some of the most conscious of conscious people are not moving consciously. We all don't move consciously in some ways sometimes, right? But that's where the pygmy, the mammy, That's where it's ancient. So, and the that's where it starts. The same thing with the pedos. It's ancient. It is imprinted in these men's souls, and they do not give a damn. The angel said they don't care. They don't care about the repercussions. They don't care about jail. It's imprinted in their souls. They are used to being able to be with 3 and 4 and 5 years old. It's imprinted in there. So a lot of men's souls. It said these Hittite priests have reincarnated. He said this is why there's more pedals now than there were even in ancient times. Why? Because they have reincarnated. And so has these mammies and pygmies and mommy dears. And some of y'all listening to me, y'all either are or have been at some point in your life. And you have to reprogram your soul. How do you reprogram your soul? Affirmations. At the end of this book, right? Affirmations. It goes into affirmations. Prayer, but affirmations. Like speaking to your soul. Speaking to your soul that I am. After reading this book, I even read the 10 Commandments differently. Right? The first 10 Commandments says, I am the Lord thy God. Okay? I am is the name for God. I am. I am. So whatever you are, right? That is God. It says the soul is right here. Tennis ball size. Ball of energy right here in your chest, in the middle of your chest. Right? Speak to that soul and speak to what you want it to be. And reprogram your soul. It has to come through affirmation. You have to speak to yourself. You have to speak to the God I am, right? And even the commandment that says not to take the Lord's name in vain. If you know that I am is the Lord's name, right? Anything that you say after I am, that is what you shall not take in vain, right? It's not oh my God or oh Jesus, good God daggone Jesus, right? It's not. That's not saying the Lord's name in vain, because that's not the Lord's name. The Lord's name is I am. Okay, and Jesus said, ye are gods, right? Ye are gods, right? And so whatever you say after I am, that is what you are. And it says the words that you speak, you saying the Lord's name in vain, it will not return void. That's what it's talking about. It will not return void, because whatever you say that you are, it's going to return back to you. Okay? It is what you are going to become. So it said the beginning were the words, and the words were with God, and the word was God. Okay? I am. So make sure when you say I am, you say something that you want to be. Okay? You don't say I'm sick of this. I'm sick of you. I'm sick of your shit. I don't feel right saying that. I rebuke that. Okay, I recant that. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am love. I am abundant. Okay? So, I just wanted to leave this with some kind of resolution, because I know this is very heavy. This is very dark, very heavy. But the darkness is coming to light. We are in the age of enlightenment. And like, subscribe, comment. I'll see y'all on the next video.